Imagine walking into a place where every shadow seems alive, where whispers echo from walls that shouldn't exist, and where the tiniest clue can vanish in the blink of an eye. A place so mysterious that even the most seasoned investigators can't piece together what happened. This is the story of a haunting case, one that has terrified locals, baffled law enforcement, and lingered in the darkest corners of the human imagination. It's a story of disappearances, unexplained phenomena, and secrets that refuse to stay buried. Tonight, we'll dive deep into the enigma that has left experts scratching their heads and ordinary people questioning what is real. By the end of this journey, you may never see shadows the same way again. Chapter 1: The First Disappearance. It all began on a foggy October evening. The town's quiet streets, usually bustling with life, were eerily still. A single light flickered in a narrow alley, casting elongated shadows that danced across the brick walls. That night, the first disappearance occurred. A young woman named Clara Evans vanished without a trace. No witnesses, no struggle, just an empty alley where moments ago she had walked. Neighbors reported hearing strange whispers, almost like a conversation happening just out of earshot. Some described a faint low hum vibrating through the air, enough to make their teeth chatter. The police initially chalked it up to urban legend or pranksters, but as days passed, it became clear that something far more sinister was at play. Detective Marla Delgado, newly assigned to the case, was unshaken by ghost stories. She had seen disappearances before, though never under circumstances like these. The lack of evidence, the absence of clues, and the inexplicable silence around the crime scene made her uneasy. There was a pattern forming, subtle, almost invisible, that hinted at something or someone preying on the town in a way no one could explain. And yet, despite the fear spreading like wildfire, curiosity began to stir. Locals whispered questions. Was Clara taken by a person, or something else entirely? And why did it feel like the shadows themselves were watching? The first disappearance was only the beginning. The mystery had arrived, silent but potent, and no one could predict how far it would reach. Chapter 2: Strange Sightings. In the days following Clara Evans' disappearance, the town's fear grew into something almost tangible. People began reporting sightings, brief flashes of figures at the edge of their vision, shadows moving against the flow of light, shapes that vanished when anyone tried to focus. One evening, a shopkeeper named Thomas Carlyle swore he saw a woman in the alley, staring blankly from the darkness. When he blinked, she was gone. The town's children whispered about the shadow that follows, claiming it appeared in their dreams before disappearing from their rooms. Even seasoned patrol officers felt an unease that couldn't be explained. Detective Delgado started to catalog these reports. They were inconsistent, fleeting, and yet shared uncanny similarities. Each sighting was near the areas Clara had frequented, often in poorly lit corners or abandoned buildings. The whispers were becoming a common element too, low, almost musical, as if speaking in a language that hovered just beyond comprehension. Curiously, every camera placed to record the streets caught nothing but static or distorted light streaks. The town's growing paranoia made some residents barricade themselves indoors, while others, driven by fear or curiosity, ventured out despite the warnings. Something or someone was orchestrating these sightings. It was as if the town itself had become a stage, with shadows performing scenes that no one was supposed to witness. The invisible presence wasn't just haunting the streets. It was infiltrating the minds of anyone who dared to watch too closely. And so, the mystery deepened, feeding on fear, curiosity, and the fragile line between reality and illusion. Chapter 3: The Abandoned Site. Detective Delgado's investigation led her to the heart of the town's oldest secret, an abandoned asylum on the outskirts, long left to crumble under decades of neglect. Its walls were cracked, windows shattered, and rusted gates sagged on creaking hinges. Locals avoided it, claiming the building was cursed, haunted, or worse. Yet all clues seemed to lead here. As Delgado approached, a chill ran down her spine. Even in daylight, the building exuded an unnatural darkness, as if it absorbed light and refused to release it. Graffiti and faded warnings lined the walls. "Do not enter. They are watching. Some doors should never open," Every step she took was accompanied by the crunch of broken glass and the distant hum of something unseen. Inside, the asylum's corridors were a maze of peeling paint, rusted bed frames, and shattered glass. The air was heavy, carrying a faint metallic scent, like blood mixed with decay. And then she noticed it, signs that someone or something had been moving here recently. Footprints in dust, scattered papers with indecipherable markings, and faint scratches along the walls. Delgado couldn't shake the feeling that the building was alive, observing her. She paused at a doorway where a flicker of movement caught her eye, but when she looked again, there was nothing. The abandoned site wasn't just a location. It was a trap, a silent witness to the horrors it had held for decades. The asylum held answers, and perhaps it held the key to understanding the disappearances. But unlocking them would come at a cost. Chapter 4: Early Investigations. Detective Delgado knew that the abandoned asylum couldn't be ignored. She assembled a small team, each member handpicked for their expertise: forensic specialists, paranormal researchers, and seasoned investigators. Their goal was simple, yet terrifying: uncover the truth behind the disappearances. From the very first step inside, the team felt the weight of the building. Shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally, whispering voices just beyond the edge of hearing. Cameras malfunctioned, recording static instead of images, and flashlights flickered as if the darkness itself rejected illumination. Each corridor revealed more questions than answers. Cryptic symbols etched into walls, scraps of paper with fragmented writings, and floorboards that groaned under invisible pressure. Witnesses were interviewed, their stories weaving a tapestry of fear. Some described seeing figures gliding through walls. Others heard faint cries echoing through empty rooms. Delgado began to notice a pattern. Each disappearance occurred near specific areas of the asylum, often where the building's structure created long, narrow corridors and deep shadows. Even the team's rational minds struggled against the growing tension. Instruments designed to detect anomalies went haywire, giving inconsistent readings, while the subtle hum that locals had reported was felt through the floors and walls. Every investigation uncovered more mysteries than solutions. Yet, despite the mounting dread, Delgado pressed on. She knew that understanding the asylum's secrets was the only way to prevent more disappearances, if she could survive the experience herself. Chapter 5: The Witness Who Vanished. Among the earliest witnesses was a man named Harold Price, a local delivery driver who had been in the alley the night Clara Evans disappeared. Initially, he provided crucial information: the fleeting glimpse of a shadow, the low hum in the air, and the sense of being watched. His testimony seemed to offer a thread the investigators could follow. But before they could delve deeper, Harold vanished. One morning, his small apartment was found empty. His belongings remained untouched, food on the stove, bed unmade, but Harold was gone. No note, no struggle, no indication of where he had gone. It was as if he had simply been erased from the world. Detective Delgado was shaken. Harold's disappearance mirrored the case's first victim, suggesting a sinister escalation. Had the asylum or whatever haunted it claimed him? Or was there another force at play, silently manipulating events outside the investigators' view? Neighbors began reporting strange occurrences around Harold's apartment. Lights turning on and off, shadows moving against windows, and that now familiar hum vibrating through the floorboards. It was as if his absence had awakened something deeper, something that thrived on fear and curiosity. The team realized that anyone involved could be in danger, their presence alone enough to attract attention. Harold's disappearance was a grim warning. The closer they got to the truth, the higher the stakes. It was no longer just a mystery. It had become a hunt, and the hunters might be invisible. Chapter 6: Unexplained Footage. Shortly after Harold Price disappeared, a box of old security footage surfaced at the local police station, sent anonymously. Detective Delgado and her team approached it with cautious anticipation, hoping it might reveal the truth behind the growing string of disappearances. The footage, grainy and distorted, depicted the alleyways and corridors surrounding the abandoned asylum. At first glance, it seemed ordinary. Empty streets, flickering lights, and the occasional passerby. But then subtle anomalies appeared. Shadows moved independently of their sources, corners darkened unnaturally, and faint figures flickered like broken projections. On multiple frames, a silhouette resembling a human figure appeared and vanished mid-motion, never fully visible, yet unmistakably present. Audio analysis revealed an even more disturbing element: whispers beneath the ambient noise. These voices were layered, fragmented, and impossible to understand fully, yet they carried a chilling familiarity, like echoes of townspeople who were no longer present. The team pored over the footage for hours, noting patterns in the movements. Shapes appeared in the same locations where previous disappearances had occurred. It suggested intelligence, intent, and possibly malevolence. For Delgado, the footage was both a breakthrough and a warning. The entity or force responsible wasn't random. It was aware of its observers and possibly drawing them closer. Each frame told a story of fear, invisibility, and danger. One that promised the more they investigated, the deeper they would fall into the unknown. The asylum's secrets were no longer just rumors. They were recorded proof, and every frame whispered a chilling truth. The shadows were watching, always. Chapter 7: The Town's Dark Secrets. As the investigation intensified, Detective Delgado began to uncover unsettling truths about the town itself. Beneath the quaint streets and cozy homes lay histories that many had long tried to forget. The asylum, she discovered, wasn't just abandoned. It had a reputation for cruelty, cover-ups, and unexplained deaths dating back decades. Old newspaper clippings revealed stories of patients vanishing mysteriously, medical experiments conducted in secret, and local officials burying incidents quietly. Some townspeople recalled whispers of rituals, odd gatherings, and cryptic symbols etched in forgotten corners. These dark layers of history seemed to bleed into the present, connecting the asylum to the recent string of disappearances. Delgado realized that the town's current fear wasn't born in isolation. It had roots in the past. Generations of secrets, cover-ups, and unexplained events created fertile ground for something to linger, to feed on fear and curiosity alike. Even the oldest residents, though reluctant to speak, admitted that strange occurrences had plagued the town for as long as they could remember. Lights flickering without cause, unexplained noises, and shadows that didn't belong. The detective began to wonder, could the recent disappearances be the manifestation of something ancient, awakened by decades of buried wrongs? And if so, how much of the town's past was entwined with the entity haunting the present? The town itself, with its hidden histories and untold stories, was now part of the puzzle. Understanding its dark past could be the key to unraveling the mystery, but it might also reveal horrors the town was never meant to face. Chapter 8: Experts Weigh In. With the asylum's mysteries mounting and the town's dark history emerging, Detective Delgado knew she needed specialized insight. She brought in experts, paranormal investigators, psychologists, and forensic analysts, each offering a unique lens on the events. The paranormal team focused on energy readings and unexplained phenomena. They reported intense electromagnetic spikes, cold spots that lingered even in sunlight, and recorded audio of the whispers previously captured on footage. It's like the building itself is sentient, one expert noted, his voice tinged with unease. Meanwhile, psychologists examined witness statements. They didn't dismiss fear, but they identified a pattern of heightened perception among those who had encountered the entity. Subtle hallucinations, distorted senses, and what they described as a sixth sense that warned of danger. Could fear itself be amplifying the events, or was the phenomenon manipulating perception deliberately? Forensic analysts tried to find rational explanations. Airflow anomalies, faulty equipment, or human interference. Yet, even their most rigorous tests yielded inconsistent results. Cameras malfunctioned at the same time, footprints appeared in dust where no one had been, and whispers registered on recordings with no identifiable source. The combined analysis suggested one chilling possibility. The events were not random. Whether through supernatural influence or psychological manipulation, the asylum was orchestrating its own narrative. The town's collective history, combined with the current mystery, formed an intricate puzzle, one that demanded careful observation, but also courage, as every step closer seemed to increase the danger. Chapter 9: The Second Incident. Just when the town's nerves were stretched thin, the second incident struck. Another resident, a young man named Eric Mallory, vanished under circumstances eerily similar to Clara Evans' disappearance. He had been walking home late at night when neighbors reported hearing low, unintelligible whispers emanating from the streets. By the time anyone investigated, Eric was gone. Detective Delgado and her team arrived at the scene immediately, their dread mounting. Footprints in the dust led toward the abandoned asylum but stopped abruptly, as if Eric had simply dissolved into the shadows themselves. Cameras in the vicinity captured nothing but a flicker of light, a distortion resembling a moving shape, too quick to identify, yet undeniably present. Witnesses described a chill in the air, a pressure that seemed to push them away from the alley where Eric disappeared. Some spoke of hearing his name called in a voice that wasn't quite human, a sound that chilled them to the bone. The second incident confirmed what the investigators had feared. The phenomenon wasn't random. It followed a pattern, targeting specific individuals, seemingly aware of their presence. The town's panic intensified, and people began locking doors, covering windows, and whispering warnings to one another. For Detective Delgado, the stakes had shifted dramatically. The mysterious force wasn't just a story anymore. It was a predator, growing bolder with each act. The question remained: who or what would be next? Chapter 10: Clues in the Shadows. With 2 disappearances and mounting fear, Detective Delgado knew the shadows themselves might hold the answers. The team returned to the asylum, determined to follow every faint trace the entity had left behind. Each corridor seemed alive, responding to their presence. Air currents shifted, floorboards creaked under invisible weight, and whispers echoed softly from dark corners. In the dim light, subtle patterns emerged. Faint scratches on the walls formed sequences, almost like a language, and scattered debris hinted at deliberate placement rather than random decay. Dust-covered surfaces revealed footprints too small or distorted to belong to any known person. Even the placement of old furniture suggested a path, a hidden map guiding the entity's movements. Investigators also found remnants of symbols linked to historical town records, shapes matching carvings found in the asylum decades ago. Could the past and present be converging? Delgado realized the clues weren't just physical. They were psychological, designed to provoke fear, mislead, and manipulate perception. One particularly chilling discovery was a faint handprint glowing subtly under forensic light, unexplainable by any known method. It was as if the shadows themselves had left a tangible mark, a breadcrumb for those daring enough to pursue the truth. Each revelation deepened the mystery, reinforcing a single terrifying fact. The entity was intentional, cunning, and intimately tied to the asylum and the town's dark history. The shadows weren't just hiding secrets. They were guarding them, daring anyone to uncover the full truth. Chapter 11: The Hidden Room. During a careful sweep of the asylum, Detective Delgado stumbled upon a section of wall that didn't match the rest of the structure. At first, it looked like typical decay, but closer inspection revealed a seam, the outline of a hidden door, long forgotten and cleverly concealed behind peeling paint and debris. With her team on high alert, Delgado pushed the door open. The room beyond was small, almost claustrophobic, yet every inch seemed deliberately designed to unsettle. Rusted chains hung from the ceiling, shattered remnants of furniture littered the floor, and walls were scrawled with cryptic symbols resembling those found in the town's oldest records. The air was thick, heavy, carrying an almost tangible sense of dread. Inside, they discovered journals and papers documenting events that had occurred decades prior. Disappearances, mysterious sounds, and strange behaviors attributed to both patients and staff. Some entries hinted at ritualistic practices, secret experiments, and a disturbing obsession with the shadows that watch. It became clear that the asylum's dark past was far more sinister than anyone had imagined. As Delgado turned to leave, she noticed something unnerving. The shadows in the room didn't quite align with the natural light. They shifted, twisted, and seemed to react to her presence, almost sentient. For the first time, She realized the asylum wasn't just a location. It was an active participant in the horrors that had unfolded. The hidden room held answers, yes, but also a stark warning. The more they uncovered, the closer they walked to danger they might never escape. Chapter 12: The Third Disappearance. Before the team could fully process the hidden room's revelations, the third disappearance shook the town. This time it was a teenage girl named Lily Henderson, known for her curiosity and frequent visits near the abandoned asylum. She had been last seen walking her dog at dusk, the sky tinged with an orange glow, when neighbors reported hearing her name called faintly in a voice that made the hairs on their necks stand on end. Detective Delgado rushed to the scene, her heart pounding. The alley where Lily vanished mirrored the previous disappearances. An eerily quiet path, no signs of struggle, and an unsettling silence that pressed against the ears. Her dog was found later, sitting calmly, staring at nothing, as if waiting for something invisible to emerge. For the investigators, this marked a chilling escalation. The entity, if it could be called that, wasn't just targeting individuals. It seemed to be growing bolder, aware of the investigation and reacting to it. Every disappearance now had a signature. Low whispers, fleeting shadows, and an unnerving stillness that made time feel suspended. The town's fear reached a tipping point. Residents began barricading doors, avoiding the streets at night, and questioning whether the shadows were simply reflections of their own dread, or something far more deliberate and deadly. For Detective Delgado, the message was clear. The longer the mystery persisted, the more dangerous it became. The asylum, the shadows, and the town's hidden past were converging into a force no one could fully understand. And Lily was its latest victim. Chapter 13: The Clues Multiply. After Lily Henderson's disappearance, the investigation intensified. Detective Delgado and her team combed the asylum and surrounding areas with renewed urgency, determined to connect the dots before more lives were lost. What they found was both illuminating and terrifying, a pattern emerging in the chaos. In multiple locations, faint symbols appeared, some scratched into walls, others drawn with unknown substances. Each symbol seemed to mark paths, corridors, and rooms tied to the previous disappearances. Footprints of varying sizes intersected, yet often ended abruptly, as if the victims had vanished into another realm. Even more chilling were the whispers captured on audio equipment. Overlapping, layered, and almost conversational, suggesting an intelligence orchestrating the events. Investigators noticed subtle anomalies in the town itself. Streetlights flickered near key locations, electronic devices failed inexplicably, and residents reported vivid, recurring dreams of the asylum's corridors. It became clear that the force at work wasn't confined to the building. It was spreading, interacting with both the environment and the minds of those who dared observe too closely. Delgado's team also discovered old records connecting the asylum's founders to occult practices, hinting that the current manifestations could be a lingering consequence of past rituals. Each clue added depth to the mystery, painting a picture of a sentient force feeding on fear, curiosity, and the very history of the town itself. The multiplying clues weren't just breadcrumbs. They were a warning. The more they sought answers, the closer they drew to something ancient, powerful, and utterly unknowable. Chapter 14: A Breakthrough? After weeks of dead ends and eerie encounters, Detective Delgado's team finally stumbled upon a breakthrough, though it came wrapped in more questions than answers. While analyzing the asylum's security footage alongside the newly discovered symbols, a startling connection emerged. Certain symbols appeared to correspond with specific moments in the recordings, almost like markers signaling the entity's movements. The team realized that the entity wasn't acting randomly. It was following a pattern, a sequence hidden in plain sight. The whispers captured in audio recordings coincided with these markers, and when overlaid with the town's historical records, a terrifying timeline began to form, one that spanned decades, linking past disappearances with present events. Even more chilling was the revelation that the shadows seemed to anticipate the team's actions. Cameras caught shapes moving just beyond the field of view. Footsteps echoed slightly ahead of where anyone was walking, and subtle shifts in lighting suggested that the entity could manipulate perception. For Delgado, this breakthrough wasn't just about patterns. it was about understanding intent. If the team could decipher the logic behind the entity's actions, perhaps they could predict the next move, or even prevent further disappearances. Yet, as with all breakthroughs in this case, the discovery brought unease. The entity's intelligence hinted at a force far more complex than anyone had imagined. Not a simple haunting, but a calculated, patient, and relentless presence, waiting for its next opportunity to strike. Chapter 15: The Unseen Observer. As the investigation progressed, Detective Delgado began to sense a presence that wasn't tied to any physical evidence. Something or someone seemed to watch the team constantly. Footsteps echoed in empty hallways, reflections appeared in glass where no one stood, and even the most advanced monitoring equipment recorded unexplained anomalies. The team coined the term the unseen observer to describe this intangible presence. Unlike previous events, it wasn't just causing disappearances. It was actively monitoring, predicting, and reacting to the investigators' moves. Delgado felt its scrutiny in moments of silence, a heavy pressure, like eyes following her from every shadowed corner. Even seasoned paranormal experts were unsettled. Cameras would record fleeting figures that vanished instantly, and audio devices captured whispers calling the investigators' names, sometimes in tones that were almost human, yet alien. The observer seemed intelligent, aware of their every step, and possibly manipulating events to lead them deeper into danger. Psychologists on the team suggested that this could be a form of collective hysteria, a manifestation of fear amplified over decades. But Delgado knew the difference. This presence was purposeful, strategic, and undeniable. Every disappearance, every flickering light, and every distorted shadow pointed to an intelligence that thrived in secrecy. The question became terrifyingly clear. Were they merely investigating the asylum, or were they being hunted by something that had already learned everything about them? The unseen observer had become the silent adversary in a deadly game, and the stakes had never been higher. Chapter 16: Messages from the Past. While reviewing the asylum's old archives, Detective Delgado discovered a set of diaries belonging to a former head nurse, Eleanor Voss. The entries detailed a chilling narrative. Patients vanishing without explanation, eerie voices in the halls, and inexplicable phenomena that staff feared but couldn't explain. Each diary ended abruptly, with the final pages describing a presence that watched, manipulated, and consumed. Among the diaries were sketches and symbols eerily similar to those recently uncovered in the hidden room and around the town. Eleanor wrote of the shadows that remember, hinting at an entity rooted in the building's very foundation. Her words were desperate, as if she knew the horrors would return and feared history would repeat itself. Some entries included cryptic warnings to future investigators, notes about rooms that change when unobserved, floors that lead nowhere, and corridors that shift for those who search too deeply. The team realized that these were not random musings but precise observations of a phenomenon that defied the natural world. For Delgado, the diaries were both a revelation and a warning. The past wasn't just history. It was alive, inscribed into the asylum, influencing the present. Each message from Eleanor offered clues, but also a grim reminder. Those who came seeking answers risked becoming part of the entity's timeline. The shadows, it seemed, were archivists of fear, cataloging each event with intelligence and purpose. Understanding these messages could be their only chance at surviving the horrors that continued to unfold. Chapter 17: The Warning Signs. As the diaries and footage were pieced together, patterns of warning signs emerged. Detective Delgado noticed subtle indicators that preceded each disappearance. Strange gusts of wind indoors, flickering lights in unoccupied rooms, and low, almost imperceptible whispers. Even animals in the vicinity reacted strangely. Dogs would bark at empty corners. Cats would hiss at shadows no human could see. Residents began reporting recurring nightmares that mirrored past events in the asylum. Some woke to the sensation of being watched, sensing shapes moving in the periphery of their vision. What was once considered coincidence was now revealing itself as a prelude to danger. The team developed a list of these early warning signs. They realized that by recognizing them, they might predict the entity's next move. Yet, Even with this knowledge, the signs were deceptive. They could appear anywhere, at any time, and often with deadly subtlety. Local historians hinted that these warnings had been present for generations, hidden in folklore and cautionary tales passed down through families. Each story described sudden disappearances, flickering lights, and shadows that followed without explanation. For Delgado, the warning signs were both a tool and a terror. Recognizing them could save lives, but it also confirmed the entity's intelligence. It wasn't random. It was deliberate. The shadows were methodical, observing, testing, and guiding events toward outcomes only it could foresee. The town wasn't just haunted. It was a stage for something calculated and relentless. Chapter 18: The First Confrontation. After weeks of study and anticipation, Detective Delgado finally encountered the entity directly. It began subtly. A shift in temperature, the whisper of footsteps when no one was present, and shadows stretching unnaturally across the asylum's walls. Then the presence grew bolder. Lights flickered violently, doors slammed without cause, and the air thickened, pressing against the investigators with suffocating intensity. Delgado led her team into the heart of the asylum, toward the room that had first revealed the hidden symbols. As they entered, the shadows coalesced into a vaguely humanoid form. Undefined, shifting, yet unmistakably aware of their intrusion. Every instinct told her to retreat, but she pressed forward, determined to face the source of terror. The entity seemed to respond to thought and emotion, reacting to fear, doubt, and curiosity. The investigators experienced visions, flashes of past disappearances, glimpses of distorted hallways, and fleeting images of those lost. It became clear that confrontation wasn't just physical. It was mental, a battle of perception and will. Despite the overwhelming presence, Delgado noticed a pattern in its behavior. Subtle pauses, repeated gestures, almost as if it was communicating or testing them. For the first time, she realized that understanding the entity might not come from brute force but through observation and deduction. The first confrontation left the team shaken yet enlightened. The entity was intelligent, reactive, and intimately linked to the asylum's dark history. It wasn't just a haunting, it was a sentient force, and this was only the beginning. Chapter 19: Secrets Unraveled. After the harrowing confrontation, Detective Delgado focused on unraveling the asylum's hidden secrets. The team revisited every document, symbol, and footprint, searching for patterns overlooked in the chaos. Slowly, a terrifying truth emerged. The asylum was not merely haunted. It had been designed to harness and amplify fear. Historical records revealed experiments conducted by the original staff, who believed certain emotions could open portals to other realms. Patients had been both unwilling participants and victims, their terror feeding an entity that had never truly left. It was bound to the asylum's foundation, growing stronger with each life it touched. The symbols discovered in the hidden room were revealed as a form of codified communication, a language bridging the human and the supernatural. When deciphered, they outlined locations, times, and conditions favorable to the entity's activity. Each clue in the town, each whispered warning was part of a system, a web designed to perpetuate fear and maintain control over the area. Delgado realized that past investigators and local historians had left fragments of guidance, warnings hidden in folklore and cryptic notes, hoping someone would piece them together. The town's collective memory, the recurring nightmares, and the sightings weren't coincidences. They were echoes of the asylum's long-reaching influence. As the team connected these threads, they understood one chilling fact. Survival depended not only on courage but on knowledge. The asylum's secrets were dangerous, but they also held the key to ending the nightmare that had terrorized the town for decades. Chapter 20: The Final Plan. Armed with newfound understanding, Detective Delgado devised a plan to confront the entity once and for all. The team gathered in the asylum, reviewing maps, symbols, and historical records. Every detail mattered, from the orientation of the rooms to the sequence of the whispers captured on audio recordings. This was not just an investigation anymore. It was a carefully orchestrated strategy to outwit an intelligent and relentless force. Delgado divided her team into pairs, each assigned to monitor specific sections of the asylum. The goal was to anticipate the entity's movements, track its patterns, and intercept it where it was strongest yet vulnerable. They carried specialized equipment, thermal cameras, audio analyzers, and electromagnetic detectors, tools designed to record and interact with phenomena they barely understood. Even with preparation, tension ran high. The shadows seemed to react to their movements, stretching and shifting as if aware of their intentions. The air was charged, heavy with the promise of confrontation. Every sound, every flicker of light, felt amplified, a warning that the entity was alert and calculating. Delgado's plan hinged on using the asylum's history against it, recreating key sequences that mirrored the past, hoping to trap the entity in a controlled loop. Timing, observation, and calm under pressure were essential. One misstep could mean another disappearance, another victim. As the team moved into position, the asylum seemed to hold its breath. The final plan was set, and for the first time, the hunters were ready to face the hunted.